Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We'd love to hear where you are. If you want to pop a comment there in the chat, let us know where you're viewing us from. Today, I have Harlan Hammock with me. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Catherine Mattice, founder and CEO of Civility Partners. We're a consulting firm focused on building positive workplace cultures through surveys, strategic planning, coaching, and training. Today, I have Harlan Hammock with me. He helps business owners turn common sense into common practice. He's a business and leadership coach. He's the host of Courage to Lead podcast, which we recorded one on Tuesday. So this is the third time this week I've seen you. And you're a digital roamer. You have to tell the audience what you're up to with your digital roaming.
Just with everything, thanks again for inviting me to be on the program. Loved it. Just with everything that was going on with COVID, so many people were working from home, working remotely. My wife and I found out that we were both working from home. And we talked to my niece and nephew who are digital roamers out on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why do the kids get to have all this fun? We're doing essentially the same thing. We're working remotely now. Why don't we do that from the beach or the mountains or the golf course or the spa or wherever we want to be? So we sold everything, downsized to one vehicle, and we're traveling. We're staying in Airbnbs. We spent a month down in Florida, a month in North Carolina. We're currently in Austin, Texas. And we're just having a good time, hop, skipping, and jumping around the country.
That's so awesome. I mean, why not? Why not? You can work anywhere from the world. Are you going to make it over to California where I'm at?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I said my niece and nephew are out on the West Coast. My daughter is in Pasadena, California. I've got friends from provisors out there in the San Diego area and up in the Orange County area. And I would love to come out to California.
Yeah, come to some provisors meetings. So talk to me about your podcast. I was on it on Tuesday, so I know what we talked about, but Absolutely. You've been doing that podcast for a while. The Courage to Lead is the name. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it started off with a conversation with a client, struggling. He was a new boss, right? Going from the operations manager to owning the business. Going from buddy to boss is a difficult transition. So we were talking about having those difficult conversations you have to have, how to build culture and everything like that. And I told him you have to be a little bit more courageous, step up and say what needs to be said. And he goes, well, what does that look like exactly? What does a courageous leader look like? So I started doing some research, found a couple articles, and I thought, this would make a great podcast. So I'm interviewing people from business owners, entrepreneurs, civic leaders, talking to them about where they found the courage, right? The courage to leave the 9 to 5 to create their own success. Where did they find the courage to overcome the setbacks, the divorce, bankruptcy, illness, death? Where do they find the courage to pick themselves back up and keep going? And have just had some amazing conversations. The conversation we had just earlier this week was great. Just where do you find the courage to keep going? And I think a lot of people are struggling with that. And my hope is that somebody will hear a podcast episode go, you know what? I was struggling with that exact same thing. And if she can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Tell me some of the themes that you've heard. What are there patterns you've noticed in the people you're interviewing? Where do they get that courage from?
All over the place. A lot of they can point to somebody in their life, a parent, a coach, a teacher, somebody that showed them what that courage looks like. Some people maybe have small kids and they hit rock bottom. And they turn and look at their kids and say, I cannot let them see me fail. Right? Because I'm expecting them to do things. I can't quit. And they pick themselves up. I had one guy that was a NFL lineman who for 6 or 7 years, he was in the NFL, quit and started his own big construction company. They were doing about $15 million a year and he lost it. He lost everything and had to go back to being a janitor at $8 an hour to work back out of that hole. Right? Most other people would curl up in a little fetal position, in the corner and just give up. These people don't give up. Something inside them says, I'm here for a purpose. They drive to make that happen.
Yeah. I got to ask, why did he go back to being a janitor? Why not? I mean, if you're running a $15 million construction company, you could get a job as a manager at least somewhere, right?
Yeah. He lost everything. I think it was a family member that helped him get him back in. And he just kind of started working his way back up. But he said he lost everything. And according to his story, it was his arrogance that kind of did it to him. They lost everything that they had, but he didn't give up. He didn't quit. He kept working in that work ethic that he built up right through the NFL. He just worked his way back up and came back strong.
Wow. That's a crazy story. We've got some people saying hi. Hi. Tell us where you're calling in from or viewing us from. Do you ever talk to people about post-traumatic growth? Have you heard this phrase before? I'm just
I've
curious.
not heard that specific phrase.
Okay.
No.
So when as we talked on Tuesday, I was bullied at work and went through this whole process of being depressed and basically got myself fired. Not basically, I did get myself fired because my performance had dropped so much. And a lot of people might, in that desperate scenario, go and find God. Honestly, I don't believe in God. I'm spiritual, but I'm not. I'm spiritual. We'll just leave it at that. And so I didn't find God, but I did find personal development, and which a lot of the same teachings. In church you pray, and personal development you put it out in the universe. A lot of the same concepts. And so I became very interested in positive psychology and personal development, and that's where I learned this phrase that some people go through trauma and they develop PTSD, and some people go through trauma and they develop post-traumatic growth, which is this, hey, I grew through that, I'm better and more resilient because of it. So sounds like that's what that NFL player went through.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us, we go through something similar, maybe not to that extent, right? But you hit a point where you say something is wrong here, and you start turning inside. Maybe it's something I'm doing or not doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You start reaching out. I know a lot of people. I just got off the phone with a guy a little while ago that, somebody handed him the book, was it the Love Languages or something?
Uh-huh.
He started reading that and opened himself up to, hey, maybe there is more out there than just this, right? And start working. But I think we all go through stuff like that, but it's things that you have to do it on your own.
Yeah.
You have to make that decision. I can't make a decision for you. The clients that I work with, I can't tell them what to do. What I can do is ask them the questions, kind of guide them. Yeah. And then if they're ready, they'll make that change and they'll be open to learning new ways.
Yeah. So I got to point out that Sharjeel, hopefully I said your name right, says rock bottom teaches you lessons what mountaintops never will. I love that. That's great.
Absolutely.
And I find that too when I'm coaching people who are engaging in some toxic behavior. They have to decide that they don't want to be that anymore and be something else. So tell us, what does your work look like when you're working with leaders?
I love working with businesses that have been in business for a while. They're almost at that success level, but maybe they've hit that plateau. They don't know exactly where they need to go from here, right? Their skills have got them to where they are. Maybe they started the business because they were technically great at what they did. I work with a lot of skilled trades. They've gotten to where they are because they're really good at what they do, but they don't know how to go beyond that. Mm-hmm. So I sit down with them, do a little assessment, kind of figure out. I'm a private pilot, so I use a lot of flight analogies. One of the things I do is talk about the flight plan. Mm-hmm. I am getting ready to fly outside the local area. I file a flight plan. Where am I now? Where do I want to be? And how do I plan to get there? What are the checkpoints along the way to make sure I'm on track? We set up a flight plan for them, their strategic plan. Where are you? Where do you really want to be? And then let's put a plan together on exactly how to get you there. Put those checkpoints in place so we know how you're going. A lot of times they're struggling with, the head trash, the negative self-talk. Mm-hmm. This is, hey, I'm making money, I'm paying the bills. What more is there? It's like, let's look at everything. What are the potentials in your business? I try to bring the awareness of what their business could be, the education, and the accountability. That's really what I'm there for.
Yeah. There's an author who's actually here in San Diego, Greg Reed. He calls himself the Millionaire Mentor. He's from that whole world of, personal development. And he talks about, or did talk about a speech I saw, that sometimes there's a fear of success and we don't recognize it, because how could we possibly be afraid of success? That's all we're ever working towards. Why would we be afraid? But I think in some cases, sometimes we do self-sabotage, or we know we need to do something in our business and we don't do it because it's scary to do it. It could mean that, hey, maybe I could actually get to what I'm going. Do you find that sometimes your clients are scared of success? Maybe they don't.
Well, it's the consequences. If you're successful, there's further to fall, right? The higher you go, the further to fall. If you're just doing this and kind of going along with the status quo, everybody expects that from you and everything is fine. If you start accelerating, getting up here, now it's like, wow, what happens? What happens if I'm that successful? People will expect more from me. it may be more work involved, whatever it is, but there's a lot of things that hold them back. We do it to ourselves. A lot of things that we do, we put those roadblocks up to ourselves. So yeah, that's a lot of it is just working through those barriers.
I hadn't thought about that before. That makes sense. Maybe it's not the fear of success. It's the fear that if you are successful, you'll fall farther and it will hurt more.
I've had this conversation with people before. To me, the one motivator in life, there's only one. Everybody thinks people are motivated by money. It's not money, it's fear. Mm-hmm. It's the fear of not having the money or somebody else getting the money you think you deserve. Mm-hmm. Fear of success, right? What comes along with that? People aren't, I think if we could identify what that fear is and figure out how to work around it. And again, courage, the courage to lead. Courage is feeling that fear and doing what needs to be done anyways, right? And that's really where we try to get to is, I understand, I feel that anxiety and stuff, but I need to do this step. And there's small steps, little micro steps until you get rolling. And then you're on your own. But it's just feeling the fear and going ahead.
So how do you help clients? You help them develop a plan. It's just through kind of brainstorming together that the two of you are collaborating on this written plan, and then you help them kind of execute where they need to get rid of the head trash to do the things they need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've got some tools that I use and stuff. One of the things that I talk to them about, a little 3-step model: simplify, strategize, systematize, right? Okay. Simplify your business. What do you do? Who do you do it for and why? Right? Focus on that. Don't try to be everything to everybody. Focus on what it is you do. What's your zone of genius? Systematize. Every goal you want to set, the result you're after, there's multiple ways you could do it. So what are some of the strategies you could use to achieve that goal? Some of the strategies they need: client acquisition. It could be employee retention, or it could be profit and margins, profit margins. What's your strategy for improving your revenue and profit? And then systems. If you put systems in place, they're like recipes. You put those systems in place, they're actionable, they're repeatable, they're measurable, and therefore they're scalable. If you can simplify, strategize, and systematize your business, it'll run on autopilot. You'll be happier, your employees will be happier, you'll get a lot more done with what you have. You don't have to grow big if you can scale your business and use what you have, and use it efficiently. So that's one of the things we do is we sit down and kind of talk about what are they struggling with? How can we put a strategy in place, and then the systems to support that strategy?
That's awesome. It definitely resonates with me because I am super focused on scaling right now, and I know what I'm not good at and what I don't like doing, and need a lot of help. And I have a great team around me. My newest team member is her title is executive assistant, but she operates more like a director of operations. And as we grow, that will eventually be her title. But she is systematizing the heck out of my company. We're on super systems. She tracks everything. So that's just not my forte. So sure. I'm so glad to have her.
But in order to grow, that's what you need. You need those systems in place, right? I talk to my clients. It's kind of like a recipe. If you have a recipe for chocolate cake and you follow the recipe, you'll end up with a chocolate cake. If you give that recipe to all your employees and they all follow it, they'll end up with identical chocolate cakes. Yeah. If somebody ends up with banana bread or ginger snaps,
they weren't following the recipe.
Either they weren't following the recipe or they were given the wrong recipe.
Yeah.
But at least you can identify what went wrong and how to fix it. If everybody's doing things their own way, you have no idea how to fix it or how to get back to that pattern you're looking for. So put those systems in place, standardize things as much as you can. It makes it easier to delegate. It makes it easier to hire somebody because you can hand them, here's the recipe, follow this, right?
Yeah.
So it just simplifies everything.
Yeah. And it helps you develop that courage because then, simplifying it doesn't feel like such a big, what is the BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal?
Exactly.
How did you get into executive coaching? Have you been doing this for a long time? And
I was a management consultant for about 30 years, organizational change management. So working with companies that were undergoing some major change. It could have been a merger acquisition, process re-engineering, something like that, a big software implementation, restructuring of the business. I would work with a leadership team to help them understand and get their mind around the change and all the impacts of that change. And then I would help them communicate the change and lead their people through the change, right? My goal was to help make them as productive and profitable as they were before the change happened.
Okay.
But getting on an airplane every Monday and every Friday got old.
Yeah.
For 30 years, it was like riding the bus, and I decided I don't want to ride the bus anymore. So I decided to stay home and focus on that area that I really like, which is working with the leadership team, making them better communicators, better decision makers, right? And so yeah, I started networking, started working with some local clients that are in the skilled trades, and yeah, it's been awesome. And like I said, working with them, they need the same thing as the big companies need, right? They need somebody to call them, to hold them accountable, right? Call them on the carpet, say, hey, this is you. You're creating this culture. If you don't like the culture, then we need to do something different.
Yeah.
And so working, what is your goal? What do you want to do? I have a framework that we use. What is your result? The strategy to achieve that result, the steps you need to finalize it, and then the metrics you're going to use to measure your success.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we just go through that, and I'm having a great time. I'm starting to work more now also with independent consultants or people who are in business who want to either retire and be an independent consultant or a coach or a mentor. Because there's a lot of steps that you can do to kind of set yourself up for success there. I've been through them. I started my own consulting company in 2003, and there's a lot of steps you have to go through, but it can be done. And yeah, people can go out and maybe become digital roamers, right? Travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have kids that are too young for me to do that now, but eventually. I'm curious, what's kind of the messiest thing you've ever walked into, be it the leader's personal head trash or the company itself? What's one of the messier scenarios you've been brought into to help solve?
It was years ago. It was up in the Boston area when I was consulting, before I went to coaching, but the consulting. And this company, they had they made fire alarm systems and the panels and lights and everything to go with that. They had their engineers that would go out to a site, measure the site, walk the site and everything like that, decide how many fire alarms and smoke detectors and everything they would need at this company. They'd write up the order and send the order back to the main office. The main office had a quality control group that would look at those orders, and their boss, the VP, told them, look at these, scrutinize these plans. If there's anything that needs to be fixed, fix it. There's a $500 bonus in it for you.
Okay.
Well, how many times do you think they found a problem that they wanted to change?
A million times.
Every single time, right? So it was competing initiatives. This group had this initiative, this group had this, and they were competing against each other, and it was frustrating their clients. It was frustrating the engineers, frustrating the so that was something we had to get in there, and we had to try to walk them through how to disengage these two things, set your metrics differently so that you're actually measuring the success that they're having, not the failures that they're having and stuff. And that was a huge change. Ended up butting heads with the VP quite often because we kept telling him, you need to communicate with your people. You need to get them involved so we can put these processes in place. And he said, they'll do what I tell them or else. And we said, okay, if that's where you're coming from, you're probably going to lose your top people because they know they can go somewhere else and get a job. You're going to lose your very bottom people because they're barely hanging on. And you're going to get stuck with that mediocre middle. Yeah. Productivity is going to drop. Everything's going to drop. And sure enough, it did. And he ended up getting bounced out of the company and stuff. But that was huge. Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, tell everyone where they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you about courage, leadership, work with you, and help get some help with that head trash.
Absolutely. No, would love to talk to people. My website is I-B4E-coaching.com. So that's the letter I, the letter B, the number 4, the letter E, -coaching.com. You can go out there and find out all about me. There's a work with me section to find out, what I do and how I do it. The Courage to Lead podcast is available on all the podcast outlets. I usually tell people Apple, it's on Apple, but a lot of people use like Spotify to see it, or even Google Podcasts. It's out there on every one of those. Would love to have your comments on there and stuff. Let me know what you think about the podcast. And I'm available on social media too. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm all over the place.
I always say, just Google me. You'll find me.
You'll find me.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the chat today, and I look forward to seeing you around Provisors. And
absolutely. We'll have you back on the podcast too.
That would be awesome. All right, everyone. Have a